I suppose I should start with my childhood. Oh my god, we're going all the way back there. This will seem irrelevant, but trust me, the full story is somewhat warranted in understanding my perspective. So then, when I was a young child, I learned that my brain had a defect. I didn't experience emotions in the same way that other people did. That is to say, I had difficulties experiencing emotions in the first place. I learned pretty quickly that my reactions weren't like the others, and that I was viewed differently than the others. To remedy that, I got better at leaving my emotions on all the time. For a time, that was perfectly suitable. I was able to blend in more or less. However, that was just one aspect of my life. The problem came with my parents. My incredibly overbearing parents. My parents who controlled every aspect of my life. You could be generous and say they worried about my life since my brain works so differently, but I know that no matter what, they would have acted the way they did. That's just who they were. I know now that that's simply how things were. They were like that through forces beyond their control. The end product of all this was that I lived an extremely controlled life, devoid of much freedom or autonomy at all. Luckily for me and them, I turned out to be something of a prodigy. I chalked it up to a side effect of my unique brain chemistry. When I finally went off to college, I felt like I could breathe fresh air again. Unfortunately, that didn't last for too long. Very soon after getting there, I found myself in a relationship with a rather despicable man. Certainly from the outside, he seemed like a suitable partner. However, he was by most metrics what one would consider an abusive boyfriend, incredibly controlling. Our relationship was anything but healthy. However, at that time, I wasn't able to see things clearly. I wasn't mature enough. And I had gotten rather good at keeping my emotions on all the time, which also coloured things. We went out for a time. He eventually broke up with me. I was too emotional. Having rather thoroughly opened myself up, this blow came like a dagger. That was the first time in my life I learned what it was like to really feel upset. Needless to say, I was not in a good state. And then, at that time, I had a rather fateful encounter. Hey, you alright? Because you kind of look like shit. Right at my lowest point, I met Rooster. He wasn't exactly the most reassuring person in the world, but it's clear he tried. Seriously? That guy seemed like a total arsehole. The type that needs to take a little walk down a long pier. That's not how the saying goes. Sayings are like species. They evolve over time. Anyways, look at it like this. You're finally free. Free? Yeah, you've got no constraints anymore. You can do whatever you want to. Follow your passions unfettered. I suppose that's a way of looking at things. It's the only way to look at things. Take me for instance. I'm going to be a famous actor one day. That's just a fact. But if I was stuck answering to boring people all the time who didn't know what they were talking about, I wouldn't reach my goal until I was like an old man or something. Don't get me wrong. There can still be some kick-ass roles for old men, true. Like Morgan Freeman. Well, that's a lot more of a niche market, and they're often mentor figures or some shit. Am I making myself clear here? In a way, yeah. Talking with them actually helped me out quite a bit. It recalibrated me, as it were. From there, I got my priorities in check. Firstly, I learned from this whole experience that it was far preferable to keep my emotions squarely turned off. I also decided that Rooster was right. I needed to find a direction in life. Something I actually aspired towards. I set it on studying psychology. After all, the way the brain worked had always fascinated me, since mine didn't quite work the same way as everyone else's. It didn't take me long to get a handle on things. Once you read through all the literature on the subject, you get the gist of things pretty quickly. Humans are a lot simpler than people like to admit. You hear so often about people doing illogical things when they're emotional, that you couldn't count on people to act in the way you expect when feelings are involved. But that's a reductionist point of view. Human behaviour is actually incredibly methodical and predictable. It's just that the logic it operates on isn't as straightforward or universal as most types of logic. Each brain's logic is in its own world, but most of these logics resemble each other, and you can learn the patterns without too much work. Eventually I became a therapist. It wasn't hard. I lived a serviceable life, but it felt as though I was missing something. There was some emptiness to it all, like going through the motions. Until years later, I met Rooster. He was doing worse than I'd met him last, but perhaps that's to be expected. Before, he was a youth with dreams. After, he'd gone through a few flagging years, but he was far from giving up, not even close. He felt the need to reconnect, so I accommodated him. As I got to know more about him, I realized that despite initial appearances, he was worthwhile. He was a lot more clever than he first appeared to be. He carried a certain type of charisma. He was the son of a rather rich family. Most importantly, watching his acting, it was clear he really had talent. He might not have yet made it big, but it was a matter of time before his career picked up, especially for someone as passionate as him. And so, I thought he'd be worthwhile to keep around in the long term. Dealing with someone as simplistic as him, it was remarkably easy to make him loyal. Once he truly fell in love, though, and once I convinced him he could trust me, he had a rather major confession to make to me. I had the feeling something was up with him, but I didn't know what it was until that night. So I didn't know how to really say this. I've lived a pretty privileged life. I get that. My parents were filthy rich, and they supported my passions fully. However, I ended up having to cut ties with them. It turns out they were doing some really shady shit. They were using their influence to prop up legislation being passed in our city that I just couldn't get behind. It was entirely against my morals. We got in a big fight and, well, it ended pretty poorly. In an instant, I was cut off from them. It was pretty rough. I'd spent my entire life being able to pretty much do whatever I wanted, when I wanted. Then all of a sudden I was completely cut off from that control. Obviously I got through it. Somewhat, that is. Work's still tough, it's still uncomfortable, living at such a lower standard of living, and eventually, in another argument with them, I learned something. It wasn't actually my parents' fault. They didn't want to do what they were doing. That was all Amadeus Bowen's fault. Amadeus Bowen? You mean that man that... So you see where this is going. I looked more into it. I hired a private investigator and it turns out the dude is a total sleazebag. I'm spotty on the details, but I think he's got a massive blackmail ring going on. I was already angry at him for being a dick to me when I was trying to get work from him. But to learn that not only was he a huge villain, but he was responsible for my fall from heaven, I couldn't forgive him. I knew what I needed to do, so cut a long story short, I murdered him and pinned it on someone else entirely. You have to believe me though, I didn't intend for Aaron Morris to get executed. Yeah, I put a lot of evidence on him, but how was I supposed to know that the body would be found so quickly? That there'd be such an airtight witness at the scene? I certainly didn't think they'd give the guy a death penalty for a single murder. Doesn't even seem like something you should be allowed to do as a judge, much less something you tend to do. I don't regret killing Amadeus Bowen. He was scum that needed to be vanquished. But Aaron Morris, his soul weighs on mine. He clutches at my heart. He lingers behind me. He knows what I did, and he reminds me that I can never be redeemed. I was already well aware of this case, namely because I just received a client of one Brian Morris. Surely this must be fate. It didn't take much to calm Rooster down, to reassure him that he did nothing wrong. When he regained a more stable composure, he talked about things in more detail. He mentioned how he got cut from Amadeus with this weird knife that he'd smuggled out, and how he still keeps that knife buried to this day. He talked about how after stealing the Mastercard from Amadeus at a bar, some gang member went up to him and straight up complimented him for the theft. He'd been caught red-handed. He talked about how Aaron's son was convinced that the killer was still out there, that he was doing a dangerous amount of digging. He talked about how the artist who moved the body must have noticed things were odd. Somehow they didn't come out in the police report, but there was no way the artist wouldn't have noticed the oddities. He talked about sleepless nights, knowing that if he were to ever become a star, these people would be loose ends that he could never take off his mind, loose ends that could reveal his sin. It was then I had the idea. Why not make use of my client connection? Surely it'd be a trifling task to convince someone as unstable as Brian into handling the loose ends himself. Luring someone so unstable into doing such drastic actions would force the police to publicly double down on Aaron's guilt, regardless of the truth. And hey, while we're at it, we could use this as an opportunity to boost Rooster's popularity, make him the star he always wanted to be. An event like this would certainly draw a lot of media attention. It was the perfect starting place. A plan that truly killed many birds with one stone. It took some time, but soon he went for the idea. After all, it was just getting rid of a lunatic, an old man, and some criminal scum. For my part, I viewed the situation more as a challenge for myself than anything else. So how's it going? Certainly Brian is unstable enough and ambitious enough to be used. Empowering his trauma and feeding into his delusions was really procedural. The specific implementation of the plan, on the other hand, I have fears about. What do you mean? The brat's really an odd duck. Instead of a typical hostage situation, he's coming up with these ideas about a trial and making it like a game, a test of people's character. I've been trying to sway him in the right direction, but there's only so much I can do on that front. Ultimately, it has to be his idea. That's the whole point of this operation. That's the only way it'll be airtight. So the plan's not working? No, the plan can certainly work. It's going to be a lot more delicate to get the outcome we want to occur cleanly. More time passed. How's progress going? Well, things are definitely going forward, one way or another. I'm worried though, even if we take control of things, even with the two of us both in the building, will we be able to guide the group enough so that things work out the way we want it? Even if we do, wouldn't it be a little obvious if we were the ones who made all the important decisions? Well, what are you suggesting? Why not take advantage of another client connection I found? Turns out the daughter of Aaron Morris's defense attorney has also been seeing me. Really? Small world. Indeed. At any rate, I think we can use her. I've been curious for a while about hypnotherapy, and after enough pestering, I got her to agree to it. As a matter of fact, it works quite nicely. With a set rhythm and 3 key phrases, I got her becoming quite suggestible. I'll continue to drill this in with our future meetings. By the time of the death game, I'm sure we'll be a perfectly trained guinea pig. We'll be able to guide her down the path that suits us, make our moves a lot less explicit, less suspicious. Don't you think it's a little much though? Like, is all that necessary? I'd like to try it out. Ever since I had the idea, I couldn't stop thinking about the experiment. The idea of being able to control another human being so directly, it filled me with an emotion I hadn't felt before. I thought you had no emotions. Self-reflecting. I could wager that something about my upbringing and trauma combined with my unique brain chemistry had combined to give me a disposition where being in control of others gave me a fetishistic pleasure. That's speculation though. I'd need to analyse my own psychoses a lot more before I could say anything definitively, and that seems like a waste of time. I mean, if you think it's a good idea, it's kind of your enterprise and all. Brilliant. Of course, such an experiment would leave another loose end, so it'd probably be the best to also settle that matter. Huh? Pay it no mind. From there, things went smoothly. Eventually I got a full scope of what the game would actually be. I shuffled through dozens of scenarios until I found one that would be the most reliable. Then we went forward with the plan. I won't bore you with the details. Mouse could probably theorise the bulk of them anyway. The point is, we put the plan into action. And words can't describe how exhilarating it felt, having control of so many lives at the push of a button, watching everybody push themselves to the limit, playing out exactly how I planned it. Well, I guess not everything went according to plan. Dog was a pebble in my shoe. But even that, even its own way, was the type of fun I'd never experienced before. I'm fully aware that this is an irrational response to this sort of thing. Needless to say, I've developed several mental disorders which have morphed my motivations quite entirely away from those a reasonable human would have. But just because I value different things doesn't make me value them any less. If anything, I learned of a unique pleasure that most could never experience. It's sad that Rooster couldn't see it that way. What the hell, Jay? I've been looking for a good opportunity to get a word in with you. Have you been intentionally avoiding me? Save whispering the old order to me? Perhaps. What is all of this? It's exactly what it looks like. A game I set up. Why? What possible purpose could there be in this? And why'd you have to kill Pig? How is that needed in any way? Rooster, you were the one who encouraged me so long ago to pursue my passions, were you not? This is simply that. Huh? Look, let me start from the beginning. Ethan, do you remember what Dog showed us the other day, no? Huh? He showed us that golden knife had a hidey hole. Seeing that, I figured you'd likely never knew about it. So I took it upon myself to find that damn knife you hid and check the hidey hole myself, and you know what I found? What? A flash drive. A flash drive filled to the brim with incredibly powerful blackmail material on the most influential people in this city, including the Chief of Police. Seriously? That's right. A gold mine of incalculable value, sitting under your nose this whole time. The fact that you never discovered this after all this time, well, perhaps has to be expected. I've always had a habit of overrating your competence. At any rate, whoever has this can basically run Hightower. With this, I can do whatever I want. Oliver, the police force, those with influence, they'll dance to my song now. Do you know what this means? It means freedom? Right. What are you going to do with that? Whatever I want, I suppose. To start with, it'll be standard things. Money. For a bigger house. For a better life. For the finer things. Living a life of luxury. Sounds nice, right? I've always wanted to try it out. And with complete financial freedom, we'll have time to try a number of passions. And if none of them work out, well, there's a lot more this flash drive will do. How far will a famous actor go to protect his secret? How dumb a law can I get past with my influence? With the police under my control, I could try solving some cases myself, or creating them. The world's my oyster. I have to be careful, of course. There are quite a few opportunities for all this to be turned on its head. But I'm a clever girl, and anticipating those bad events seems like fun in and of itself. You really gonna do all that? Maybe, if I get bored. But who knows, maybe being wealthy is all that it's made out to be, and that'll satisfy me. We'll have to see. At any rate, I'm certain this flash drive will bring me true happiness. There's only one thing that could get in the way of that, and that's the people gathered here. Snake, dragon, mouse, who knows what nonsense Dog filled their heads with. Ox is a prosecutor with a surprisingly rigid sense of justice and a high work ethic. He definitely needs to go. Initially I thought Bunny was easily compromised. compromisable. However, I've recently learned that he's been making moves against dear Oliver. He certainly has to go. Oliver's the biggest card in my deck. Pig's a desperate journalist, eager to get any scoop of news. She came close to uncovering things before. She could easily do it again. Tiger's too dumb to be predictable. Who knows what she'll do? And she has the fame and riches to be a force to contend with. Horse is a complete unknown. If he gets a whiff of the truth, he could very well come and kill me himself. And sheep? Well, to be honest, sheep could probably be left alone, but you know what? It'd be odd to just leave her out at this point. All of them have first-hand experience with the first death game, with Dog, with the initial trial, with a lot of things. And none of them at this point are easily controllable. He told me to deal with the loose ends Dog provided. Simply put, if we're dealing with loose ends, that's what I'd call the whole lot of them. But to kill all of them? And okay, putting aside all that, sure, let's say you have to kill all of them. Why do it like this? What's with the whole death game setup? How do you expect to get away with this? Honestly, the idea that someone inspired by Brian would hold another death game in his honor is far more believable story than everyone being individually killed at roughly the same time. I'm sure Ollie can find suitable patsy to pin it all on. But why actually run a death game? Last time we had to do it so it matched Brian's description, and so the other survivors would be witnessed on our side. But if the plan is to clean up all the witnesses, you should just blow them all up now and be done with it. Where's the fun in that? Fun? There's no fun in murder. Why not? No, seriously, think about it. The survivors of the past death game are back, faced with a new mysterious foe, and new challenges to face. With chaotic cards and the traitor lurking, will they band together or crumple under the pressure? Doesn't that sound like a cool movie? This isn't a movie. The fact that you think there's such a difference saddens me. Besides, worst comes to worst, I'll just explode them all and be done with it. Really, the matter is already settled. Does it really matter if I play with my food a bit? Of course it matters. It matters because it's wrong. Wrong? Ethan. You continue to disappoint me in so many different ways. I must say, our time together was impactful. However, I far overestimated how much we were alike. I believe you've long outlived your shelf life. And if I'm going to be gaining true freedom, I suppose that includes in doing away with you as well, right? Hold on a minute. What are you doing with that book? That's what happened. So you're a sicko, that's all. Cool. I believe that should answer the majority of your questions with the incident. However, if you have more to say to me, please do make yourself heard. This couldn't be right. I was, hell, basically brainwashed? There's no way, there's just no way, right? You're fucking batshit, lady. Indeed. How on earth could someone like this exist? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. How do you live with yourself? I already explained how I feel emotions to a far less substantive degree than the rest of you, right? You... save it. It's not worth wasting breath arguing with this reprehensible trash. Completely unforgivable. Oh, don't curse me so thoroughly. It's not my fault. How can you say that with a straight face? It's simply how it was always meant to be. Huh? Didn't you know, Ox? The world is fated. Your genes and history were decided without your input, and like it or not, those two factors will really make the decisions. From my birth, I was 100% certain that I would grow up to be like this. I have no real say in the matter. So if you're to curse anyone, curse God for the hand he dealt you all. You're saying you have no real control of your actions? Not in a grand sense, no. Then I have to ask, how are you getting any pleasure for controlling us in these death games? By your own logic, you still aren't really in control. God is. That's... For the first time I looked at his own monkey had been caught off guard. At any rate, we're all facing an issue. We've got your hands on Amadeus's blackmail flash drive, yes? So this incident isn't ending here. With your taste for blood awakened, and with the city safely in your pocket, you intend to continue playing with innocent people's lives until you're eventually caught or killed. Oh, don't judge me so quick, Snake. Like I said, I plan to start with something nice, peaceful living. But you know, we'll see. They say being rich doesn't make you happy after all. You can't let that happen. Oh, but I'm afraid you must. It's a shame that this game is going to have such an abrupt ending, but I guess that's the risk you take when you try and get clever and act as one of the participants. Believe me, it's a mistake I won't make again, but for now, don't despair. I just need to execute the lot of you here and now. Everyone just cuddle around her. If she blows you up, she dies too. I'll also allow any of you to join me, to become one of my helpers. After all, the more of you that make it out of here alive, the easier my job will be to explain all this. You... Horse stood up. To the side, Snake whispered something to Dragon. You think you can just do whatever you want? Consequences be damned? You think I wouldn't give my life to slay a monster like you? If you think that, you truly can predict nothing. Horse rushed forwards, swinging a fist at Monkey. Monkey didn't panic, however. Instead, out her sleeve came a long metal rod. The rod intercepted Horse's swing. The sound of Horse's cry and the cracking of electricity rang through the classroom. Oh, don't worry, Horse. Your little temper tantrum was well accounted for. But are you sure you want to kill me? Isn't there someone else who should be handling this? Horse faltered, looking down. But then he grinned. No, I think I can do this one myself. Immediately, Horse slammed his fist down, aiming at Monkey's head. He didn't hit Monkey's head, however. He hit Monkey's steak knife, which he had pulled out from seemingly nowhere. As Horse recoiled, Monkey quickly pulled the knife out of Horse's arm, moving forward to slash him across the gut twice. Horse roared off kilter and collapsed backward onto the ground. Even the attacks you choose to use, entirely expected. But then again, am I surprised? You were a pawn. The piece with the fewest number of moves available to them. Monkey then took the phone out of her pocket. I'd think of a few others who might want to start acting irrationally. If you value your lives, I'll refrain from using such violence. Don't forget who controls your life. With a confident smile, Monkey walked out of the classroom. Many people wanted to stop her, but our attention was diverted as Sheep ran to Horse. Hey, hold on! She took off her sweater, using it to dress Horse's wounds. She looked over him with grim decision. Don't worry, these wounds aren't fatal. We'll take care of Monkey. I'll make sure Horse pulls through this. How can Horse be taken down so easily? When we had to fight him, he was an unstoppable killing machine. And Sheep's moves accordingly as well. Apparently Monkey hadn't fully left, rather she was simply standing outside the classroom, using this injury to cowardly excuse herself from the responsibility of dealing with a threat. But then again, perhaps she couldn't handle failing to properly address someone's wounds again. Enraged, Sheep pulled a pen from out of her pocket and wildly flung it at Monkey. Monkey caught her with a calm look on her face and began to walk away. The group went after her, though nobody seemed to know what the game plan was. Still, we all stood in the hallway looking at her. She stood back at us, waiting patiently, holding the phone in the air. Her finger circled around a button that I couldn't read from here. I could guess what it meant, though. The first to step forward was Snake. I'm not sure if what you offer is genuine, Monkey. Of course it is. Then I'll be happy to join you. Snake? Forgive me, Mouse, but it's not like I have much choice in the matter. Our options are limited, so I now stand with the powerful. Besides, helping you with this blackmail job could be quite interesting. Done right, there could be beauty in these experiments. I have some editorial notes on how in the future you could... That does it, Snake, you asshole. An enraged dragon stepped forward. Without a second thought, she swung her metal back at one of Snake's back legs. I knew you were a selfish asshole, but I never saw this in you. Maybe I can't hurt Monkey, but I can sure as hell set an example to potential traitors. Dragon stepped down on Snake's left hand and then swung the bat down on his left arm. I heard the sound of bones crack. Everyone, look at this. This is what happens when you sell your soul to the devil. In a rage, she swung hard at Snake's right side. Again, the bat heavily impacted Snake's right arm. Snake fell to all fours. In a beautiful flow, however, Dragon immediately spun around and changed her target from Snake to Monkey's left arm, the one holding the phone. In response, Monkey jabbed Dragon in the stomach with the cattle prod, sending her flying, her back landing on the floor. Fuck! Dragon, you absolute moron! I was obviously going to betray her. What? My. What a comedy of errors. I'd be laughing if it weren't entirely what I thought would happen. Snake would inauthentically plot to get on my good side, intending on a betrayal. Dragon would act first, think later, but her eyes would never really leave me. She'd just be looking for a time to strike at me. And to think I had you two pegged as the most unpredictable. Just then Snake lunged from his position. His right hand grabbed out for the phone. Monkey caught off guard, tried to pull back, but the phone went sliding down to the floor. Dragon, still lying on her back, grabbed her bat and smashed the phone on the floor. Gotcha. This is... At our school, we recently had a stage performer come in. I picked up his lesson on acting out a fight quite quickly. Snake smirked, but as he winced, it was clear that Dragon had indeed broken his left arm. Monkey's entire face, on the other hand, was entirely flushed. She immediately started twiddling her thumbs at a speed I'd never seen before while closing her eyes. It looked like she was muttering something under her breath. And a few seconds later, she regained her composure. I have amended my predictions. I'm still fine. It's simply a matter of foregoing the phone and using the computer. In an instant, I realized what she meant. She's going to try and get to the base where she's been running the game. However, as Ox shouted this, Monkey reached under his sweatshirt. With a bit of difficulty, she pulled out a metallic stick. I realized this is part of the contraption she strapped to all our chests. But Monkey was unable to undo this piece from her bomb. Wait, these bombs were strapped to our chest? As I realized what this meant, Monkey flipped a switch on a cylinder and threw it up to the ceiling. Then she immediately began to run down the hall. We started to follow her, but we were pushed back by the immediate explosion that occurred as the cylinder hit the ceiling. It was a pretty minor explosion, all things considered. Definitely not the full force of the blast that could incinerate our chests at any moment. But it was enough to do a number of on the building's structural integrity. The ceiling began to collapse when Tiger leapt in front of us, held up her arms. She began to shield us as the debris began to fall. Hurry, get through there. We didn't need to be told twice. Ox, Bunny and I ran forwards as Tiger stood in place, attempting to prevent the entire building from falling in on itself. I was grateful for what she did, but I didn't have time to give thanks. I was sprinting towards Monkey at full speed, with Bunny and Ox by my side. If she was able to get wherever she had kept the computer running before we caught up to her... No, I couldn't think about that. Besides, we were gaining on her. As much as Monkey could predict, she could think herself into running quicker. Couldn't think herself into running quicker. Up ahead, Monkey took a hard right, turning the corner where the staircase to the second floor was. Why was she... Immediately, my mind flashed back to the library. Other than the two doors to enter it, there was one door in the back with an exit sign. She must be aiming for the door to leave the building. We followed her. Bunny had taken the lead, so he was the first to begin turning the corner, which is why he was the one who caught hold of the cattle prod as Monkey leapt out to ambush him. To Bunny's credit though, he didn't immediately pass out. He actually caught the prod, and then to my utter shock, he gripped it so hard as to break it off. I'd heard that cops needed to pass pain tolerance tests before they got their taser. This is something different. However, it's not like Bunny was Superman. In doing this feat, Bunny immediately and wordlessly fell onto his back. Naturally, you'd be the quickest of the three. That's the most troublesome one handled. And without another word, Monkey resumed his sprint up the staircase. But through this ambush, Ox and I had all but caught up with her. We made our way up the double-layered staircase and prepared to run down the hallway. However, once again, as Ox began to turn left around the corner, Monkey jumped out at him, plunging his steak knife at his chest. Ox didn't nearly have the instincts Bunny had. He took the blow squarely in the chest and stumbled down the stairs, knife still in his chest. And you, the smart one, fell for the exact same trick. There really isn't any difference between a cop and a prosecutor. Again, Monkey calmly resumed running away. Ox, I'm fine, Mouse. She just got me in the side. More importantly, go after her. Right, of course. Why'd I even stop to check if he was fine? I was the last one left. If I couldn't pull my weight, we'd all be dead soon enough. I ran faster than I'd ever run before. Like I thought, Monkey entered the library. I went in right after her. There in the library, Monkey turned towards me, catching her breath. I slowed down, also catching my breath. Please, Monkey, you don't have to do this. You're right, I don't. Then seemingly out of nowhere, Monkey threw a jab right at my head. I was so blindsided by the act that I caught the punch squarely in the face. I stumbled back to the wall. Tiger sacrifices herself in the explosion to let Mouse, Ox, and Bunny through. Sacrifice the cattle prod to get rid of Bunny. Sacrifice the steak knife to get rid of Ox. In the end, Mouse alone will catch up on me. But she won't be able to stop me from walking out that door to the nearby computer and entering a few simple keystrokes. I already told you, Mouse. I redid the calculations. This is a solved game, and your team loses. That couldn't be the case. Oh my god. Appeal to her humanity? She obviously doesn't have any. Why would you do that? Why would that even be an option? Of course she doesn't have any fucking human... Lie. Okay, you got me. If you just spare me, I'll work with you. I can help you set things up. Honest. I mean, I saw through you. So you know I'm smart, right? You are quite smart, Mouse. Smart enough to know your only chance at this juncture is to trick me. Apologies, but I know you quite well, Mouse. I'm your therapist. The chance that this is genuine is perhaps 3%. No. There had to be something. Challenge you to a game. Let's settle things fairly. Oh? You think you're so good at predicting things? Well, why don't you prove that? One final game. You versus me. Winner takes all. I'm excellent at predicting things, Mouse, which is why I knew you'd propose something desperate like this. Something? Something, anything. Go for a punch. I took a moment to steel myself and then I rushed her, fist clenched. I planned on going for a simple uppercut, but before I could even get in range, Monkey moved towards me. She kicked me right in the gut, stopping my progress. Come now, Mouse. I was able to handle Horse in a fight. You think I couldn't handle you? I admit, without any weaponry, I probably couldn't handle someone like Bunny or even Ox, But you? You're even weaker than me. No. I fell to my knees. Despair was filling my body. There was nothing I could do. Monkey looked at me with a look akin to pity. Oh, Mouse, don't look at me like that. It's not your fault. You're really a remarkable woman, truly. Given your situation, you far exceeded what most would be able to do. But the fact is, humans have their limits. That's... Looking at me, you seem to be struggling, panicking, thinking that if you did or said the right thing, you could win. That's just not how things work. There are times in life that none of the options can bring you victory. Just accept that this is one of those times. Keep cool. You know, it really is a shame to get rid of you, Mouse. I had a lot of fun controlling you. And in some weird way, it was even more fun when you acted out of line. You were a wonderful puppet, but I plan on living free. And you're just too much of a liability. Monkey began to turn away. You can't. You're not going to get away with this. There's some way to stop you. It'd be nice for you if there was, right? But I already thought it through. The chessboard, I picked each and every piece delicately. I crafted the spaces myself. There's nothing here that's going to defy my expectations. And if nothing defies my expectations, then I can certainly control the outcome of the game. Just face it. I'm in control of everything here. You're in control of nothing. Because I have control, I'm going to choose to murder you all. And nothing unexpected is going to pop up and save you. You can only explicitly taunt fate so much until the world decides to whack you on the back of the head. In this case, the whack came in the form of Rooster. Thank God we saved his life. I mean, he's not that bad of a guy. You know? Yeah, he murdered Bowen, but he was a prick anyway. To my complete surprise, he had woken up from his stupor a bit ago. Monkey made the classic mistake of monologuing for too long. While she did that, Rooster regained his footing. He didn't look okay at all. But as though he were possessed, he rushed at Monkey and slammed her into the wall. Before Monkey could cry out more, Rooster's hands wrapped around her throat. What do you do? This must end. Stop. This must end. With an unparalleled rage in his eyes, Rooster choked Monkey's neck harder and harder. A number of emotions went through Monkey's eyes. Confusion, then fear, then desperation, and finally acceptance. What did I do during this? Nothing. I just stood there watching. Finally, Monkey's eyes remained open, but they saw nothing. Rooster let go of her, letting her corpse flop to the floor. The second person he had killed. The second person he had strangled. Then he turned to me. He looked me right in the eye. He gave me a look of how to describe it. I can't think of the right emotion. But it was the equivalent of a sad shrug. An apology? A grim acceptance? A what can you do? And then without much of ceremony, Rooster collapsed to the ground. He was far, far from recovered. The fact that he'd gotten up in the first place was a 1 in a million miracle. The type that no man can predict. The sort of thing God sends now and again just to keep us all humble. Absent-mindedly, I walked to the door Monkey was running to. I opened it. And there, finally, for the first time in a long time, freedom. I wasn't moments away from dying. I could almost cry, but not yet. I looked over and I saw a picnic table nearby. The door apparently led to the school's backyard. On the picnic table were a number of things. Of particular note, there was a laptop. That was probably what was running this whole thing. There was something that caught my eye even more. A small orange USB flash drive sitting next to the computer. This was it, wasn't it? Amadeus's legacy. The root of it all. I picked up the flash drive, held the holy hand grenade in my hand. Now, what to do with you? Oh my god. Well, this is important. We need to get rid of all the corruption in town. You can't give it to the authorities because they'll... It's too powerful to be... destroy it. Without a second thought, I clenched my hand. I've had enough of this USB and the games it had played. I felt the metal crush in my hands. And just like that, it was over. I contacted the authorities and they arrived on the scene right away. In the meantime, I just stood there in open air. Finally free. To put it mildly, I had a lot of thoughts about everything that had happened. It was reasonable to say that I'd never be the same after all this. I definitely need a new therapist. Because boy howdy, there was a lot of stuff to work through in all this. But I moved on. Because unlike Dog and Pig, I could. Unlike Amadeus and Aaron and Brian and Rooster and Monkey, my life didn't have to be defined by my incident. I'd take a bit of doing to get over it all, certainly. Naturally, the media would eat this incident up, and I'd be all over the news. In all likelihood, I'd never truly shed the skin of this incident. But the fact of the matter is, you can never truly erase the past. But I didn't need to be defined by it. I could go on and become the greatest defense lawyer the world had ever seen. I could be angered by this incident, shake my fist at injustice, and turn into a prosecutor. I could become a famous author, writing about what had happened, and other similar topics. I could get really into horse riding and become a professional jockey, or I could just jump off a building one day. But whatever happened, I was free to choose it. I was in control from here, and that was what really mattered to me. Many weeks later. Hey. Nice place you have here. It isn't. Nice of you to stop by, Ox. I wasn't sure if I'd see you again. I don't know why you wouldn't. We did sort of go through a lot. Also, you really still gotta call me Ox even now. Think of it as a nickname. I think of it as a reminder of a pretty thoroughly traumatic experience. Well, you always did look on the downside. Anyway, what brings you here? No reason in particular. I just had some time off and I wanted to see how you were holding up, after the dust had started to settle in. I'm living. Found myself a new therapist. Hopefully one that doesn't try to slowly brainwash me over time. That's the goal, isn't it? How about you? Quitting the whole prosecution racket, huh? How bold. Indeed. I can't say I'm feeling particularly confident in my choices right about now. However, after reflecting a bit on this whole thing, I can't help but feel my time there has been misplaced. I want to make the world a better place, but I might need to think a bit harder about how exactly I plan on going about it. Well, good for you. Have you figured out what you want to do now? I'm not sure. Something befitting my skill set, certainly. Anyways, did you hear about the news regarding Rooster? Oh yeah, he finally woke up, didn't he? Indeed. Honestly, after spending so long in intensive care, I thought he was a goner. Totally. I can't believe that botch job we cobbled together actually ended up saving him. You can never underestimate the human spirit. You can't. He's going to jail for probably the rest of his entire life. The case against him at present is actually surprisingly tenuous, should he not confess. But yes, I would wager on a long-term imprisonment for him. It's probably for the best. Still, I can't say I don't feel at least a bit bad for him. You do? I mean, he did end up saving us when all is said and done. And he's probably just as manipulated into being party to the whole thing as Brian was. I suppose. Still, I wouldn't shed a tear had he not recovered. The funeral date for Dog and Pig is still being set. It's been a while. I think it's nice that Pig's online popularity is sort of surging post-mortem. I mean, it kind of seems like hollow consolation, but you know. It's not nothing. I'm sure Pig would have appreciated that. And I'm sure Dog would have appreciated the media's silence on his whole part in any of this. He probably would have. Did you hear about Tiger? She's back with with Olympics training. I heard about that. Apparently she wants to try and qualify for some sport in the Winter Olympics, although she's not sure which. Sounds about right. Still, I wonder why she wanted to do the Winter Olympics specifically. Probably just a whim. Seems a little late in the game to start training for an entirely different sport though. Well, if anyone could do it, it'd probably be Tiger. I also heard some news about sheep. Do tell. After this whole incident, she packed up everything and moved back with her parents in her hometown. Seriously? I guess they're worried about her after all this crazy stuff happened. A reasonable reaction. Well, I hope it works out for her there. I do too, though I doubt it. Huh? In my experience, people moving back with their parents at that age is rarely a good sign. But we shall see. At any rate, I also heard about Bunny. Oh yeah, so did I. Since I crushed that incriminating flash drive, it's been difficult to prove much regarding the whole police situation. Didn't he, like, revolutionize the police force or something? Yes, unbeknownst to Oliver Bowen, it appears Bunny has been spending his time gathering confidants who are also sick of the current system. In a rather radical turn of events, a whole bunch of evidence has come to light, which puts Bowen and many other high-ranking officials under great scrutiny. They've lost their jobs and the federal courts are considering pressing charges. In the meantime, Bunny and the others have become the acting police force in Hightower. Huh. Good for Bunny, I guess. He strikes me as the type that would plot an uprising like that. There's also the matter of Horse. He's apparently gone missing. What? Indeed, the games must have broken him. People have been unable to find him, despite searching. It appears his adopted child will be going back to the orphanage if this keeps up. Did he kill himself or something? No, if rumors are to be believed, he's rampaging the streets at night while wearing a skull mask. Come again? It's all very strange. All I can tell at this point is he's not doing too well for himself. If we're really going to do a full recap of how everybody's been doing, I suppose I'd be remiss to not mention Dragon. You would be. Apparently she's reformed her gang into a group aimed to protect and uplift the community. No shit. Indeed. I suppose the dance with death has made Dragon turn an altruistic heel. Naturally, such drastic reforms to the group has met with a lot of backlash. A lot of people quitting, other gangs eager to take advantage of the power vacuum and the like. but that was always to be expected. For the most part, it seems like Dragon's been keeping things together. That's a relief. I spent a lot of time imprisoned with her. I'm glad to see she's used her charisma for good. Indeed. She's even collaborating with Snake. You're kidding. I'm dead serious. Snake apparently rekindled his love for teaching through this. I spoke with him. He says after everything he was said and done, he realized the things that would last after he was gone was not any of his artwork, but his influence on the younger generation. Put it that way, it was simply amoral to waste time dilly-dallying about nothing much of substance, no? Sounds like Snake, alright? In this aim, he's been part of a community outreach program aimed at helping high school dropouts turn their life back around. A pretty saintly idea if ever I've heard one. Telling me. Right on, Snake, right on. I sighed. It was all a lot to take in. Say, Mouse? Yeah? Have you been bothered at all by what Monkey was talking about back then? You're gonna have to be more specific there. That lady said a lot of crazy shit. Talking about her whole spiel about how the world is predestined and everything. I've been thinking about it ever since, and she raises a point, you know? In this very specific avenue, I mean. It's just, I don't know how to refute it. Ox, have you heard of playing your outs? I heard about it from Snake when we were imprisoned at Dogs. Basically, the idea is that if there's a situation where you always win or always lose, you ignore it. After all, your decisions don't matter in those scenarios. And so you just focus on the situations where your choices can change things. I think that's pretty applicable here. How so? Perhaps predetermination is real. Who gives a shit? If that's the case, then whatever. But if it's not, then think about how ridiculous it'd be to use predetermination as a crutch. Just imagine failing to win a race and then claiming that you never could have won the race because it was predestined. It's laughable, right? Well, when you put it like that, I think it's important to keep in mind that everyone has their own circumstances that made people the way they are, and that sometimes things happen without much of a good reason. It's all fine and good, but beyond that, the only use I can see thinking about that type of stuff is just making yourself depressed. I don't know if I have true free will or whatever, but I know that I'm experiencing my life. I know that the choices I make are what will make my life better or worse, and that's really all that matters to me. It's kind of a dismissive way of thinking about it, though. Is that so wrong? Who's to say? I am. Then it isn't so wrong. Exactly. Standing there, my eyes wandered to the crushed USB still sitting on my desk. Evidently, so did Ox's. I have to ask, Mouse, why'd you crush that thing? Must have had a ton of important information on it. Useful information. I sighed. I really wasn't in the mood to be lectured. I was just sick of it. That stupid little stick was the cause of so much infighting, so much suffering. I didn't want to be smart about it. I wanted it to be over. Well, it's certainly over now. Yeah, you're right. It's over. It's finally over. I couldn't say what the future had in store for me, or for Ox, or for anybody else. I couldn't say whether or not I'd made the best decisions in the past, or what I should have done. I couldn't say that this whole disaster wouldn't stick with me until the day I died, but at the very least, I could say that by destroying that Pandora's box once and for all, I'd killed the case once and for all. No one else would be tempted by its siren song. Now all that was left was to bury the bodies it had left. And that was good enough for me. The Black Joker. There are infinite ways in the universe to live. This is merely one. No man has a set path that he must walk, but in the end we must all make the choice of which. And that is it. The true ending. We finally made it. This is going to be split into like 3 episodes as well. Just so you know. Maybe 2 long ones. Maybe 3 shortish ones. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Very good. Loved the story. Fantastic. Blew me away. It really did. It blew me away. And we've been at it for like 30 hours. What episode is this? Like 35, 36? I don't even know. Crazy times. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll leave it here. Unless you guys desperately want to see more. There are some endings we haven't reached. Just minor stuff. And there's the interviews, which we have to unlock somehow. If you do want to do more, please let me know in the comments down below that you want to do more. Otherwise, that was the Zodiac Trial. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Thank you for sending over a copy for us to check out to the developer. And awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next series.